Okay. So group, I would like to welcome you to our information session today. We're going to do a just short introduction of our panelists, the speakers on the call today. But a few things I'd like to mention first. We are recording this information session today so that those who couldn't make it can reference it later. So if we come to the question portion of this session, and you do not have to speak your questions. You can type them into the chat and anonymously submit them if you do not want to be recorded as having asked a certain question, and we'll reiterate that again at the end. So with that, I would love to welcome you and remind you all of our purpose today. Today we are going over the Barr and NAS Mid-Level Leader Initiative. And we are going to meet a few of the coaches, the people who are involved in this, as well as our partner at Barr Foundation, and certainly have time to go over any questions that you have. But to start us out, I will just give a little bit of time for all of us to introduce ourselves. My name is Sunny Widman. I'm director at NAS. We'll talk a little bit about NAS in just a moment. And I have been working with the Barr Foundation on this initiative. My pronouns are she, her, and I am located, actually this is my home, I'm located in Tacoma Park, Maryland. And I will pass it over to Sue Ellen Kroll.
Okay, thank you, Sunny. Hi, everyone. It's wonderful to be here with you all today. I really appreciate your time and your interest and curiosity to learn more about this initiative. My name is Sue Ellen Kroll. I'm the program officer in arts and creativity at the Barr Foundation. I use the she, her pronouns, and I'm joining you today from Providence, Rhode Island.
Great, and let's turn it over to Darren next.
Thank you, Sunny. Thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is Darren Dudley. I am Director of Learning, Evaluation, and Engagement with NAS. I'm also an NAS coach, and I'm excited that you are all here to join us this morning. Oh, wait, and I am joining from, where am I? I'm in Maryland. I'm in Prince George's, Maryland, actually not very far from where Sunny is, also in my house, and I do use the pronouns she, her.
Awesome. And let's see, Veronique, would you like to go next?
Have to remember to take off mute first, but hi, everyone. I'm Veronique Lamel. My pronouns are she, her. I am a coach as part of the collective, and I'm joining you from San Antonio, Texas.
Thank you, Veronique. And Jacqueline?
Yeah, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Russell. My pronouns are she, her, hers, esa. I am connecting from the lands of the Tamayame people in north central New Mexico, and am really excited to share with you all about my journey in coaching, and just really excited to hear some of the questions that folks have today. So it's wonderful to be with you all. Thank you.
Thanks, Jacqueline. And Steve.
Hi, everyone. My name is Steve Rader Ginsburg. My pronouns are he, him. I live in New Haven, Connecticut, which is on the unceded lands of the Quinnipiac people. And I work in Hartford, and I'm the director of the Ottorino Center for the Arts and Humanities at the University of St. Joseph. And I'm also a National Art Strategies coach.
Excellent. Thank you all for being here. Wonderful co-hosts, and thank you, attendees. Shall we get started? Great. Okay. So just for a little bit of, table setting what we'll be doing today, we have a brief presentation about this initiative, about what coaching is in general. And then we're actually going to hear from some of the coaches. We have several coaches from the NAS community on this call. There are several more that you can read about it on our website, but we'll have some coaches talk about their direct experience, why they decide to be coaches, what they think, can be valuable for people who work in the arts, mid-level leaders, and mid-level leaders in particular working towards equity goals, touching on those points in their presentations. And then finally, we'll address any questions that you might have about this initiative. So to start it from the top, a brief overview. By now you've heard a little bit about this initiative, but just to recap, what is on offer here? This is a program to support mid-level leaders in arts and culture organizations in Massachusetts. And what we are offering in partnership with Barr Foundation is not only a coaching package, so a coach to work one-on-one with an NAS coach who is certified and trained and goes through ongoing training and supervision for 6 sessions, but also the opportunity to work in a peer support group. We know that especially right now, that ability to connect with peers in your field and ask questions about, this is something I'm experiencing. Is anybody else, maybe in a different organization or even artistic discipline, facing this same challenge? And to really trade ideas and get into that peer support can be so valuable. So in registering for this program, you are signing up for the coaching package, the 6 sessions with our coaches, and then the option to be involved in that peer support circle. The peer support, as we'll get into a little later, it's not required. If you're only interested in the coaching, that is okay. But those are the 2 layers of support that are involved in this initiative. So I am going to hand it over to Sue Ellen, our partner in this work from Barr Foundation, to talk a little bit about why this initiative, why move forward with this.
Thank you, Sunny. So given the 2020 disruptions, the Barr Arts team recognized the critical need to develop more leaders, artists and staff within organizations who are adaptable, resilient, and out-of-the-box thinkers who can deeply engage with communities and who can navigate unfamiliar, difficult situations, particularly towards equitable outcomes. This has clearly been a time of seismic shifts happening both in society at large and in the arts sector more specifically. And we see an important opportunity moment to address inequities head on and reimagine a healthier arts and culture sector in Massachusetts. And to do that, we know that we need leaders who can tackle complex change efforts, and that these happen across many different dimensions, individual, organizational, and systems. And we purposefully selected to work with mid-level leaders because we think that mid-level leaders are key levers for change in their institutions. And our hypothesis in creating this initiative is really about supporting you all as leaders and equipping you with more tools and resources to stem frustration and burnout, which we know can ultimately lead to many of our talent leaving the sector. And Barr has chosen to partner with National Art Strategies, who we've partnered with on many different initiatives before. We've been very impressed with how incredibly responsive they have been to both the pandemic and the racial justice uprising in devising new curriculum materials and modalities that meet current needs facing leaders. And across its array of leadership programs, National Art Strategies works with leading scholars and practitioners to provide nationally recognized high-quality programs that build the skills necessary to advance collaboration, racial equity, strategy, and management in the arts sector. And so we're really excited to have this national partner bring their resources to Massachusetts to help us work on these issues. So I'm going to hand it back to Sunny.
Thank you, Sue Ellen. And NAS is really grateful to be partnering with Barr Foundation. Just a quick word about us. We have been around in the field working with leaders in arts and culture since 1983. I believe that is right. Yes. And when we use the word leader, we mean that in the broadest possible context, not just people who are in designated leadership positions, but people that we really see leadership potential in, maybe even outside of an official position of leadership. That includes artists and community organizers and people who are creating change and lifting up others and celebrating what is great about their community, maybe not even running or involved in a nonprofit organization. So when we say leaders, we mean that, certainly mid-level employees are leaders, and we extend that to lots of different other populations as well. So Kyle, if you would, let's go on to the next slide. I also want to lift up Kyle, my colleague, who has gotten us all here and is running things in the background. Kyle, thank you for joining us today. We are going to go through just a few key questions about the program and then go into what is coaching. So the first one, what is on offer here in this program? So what you are getting through this program, to reiterate, you will receive 6 one-on-one coaching sessions with an NAS coach as part of this program. And those will be focusing on advancing your own personal equity goals related to your work in your organization, in your communities, with your partner organizations. So 6 sessions in an hour each to advance those goals. In addition to that, there is the optional opportunity to participate in a peer learning community. And that will mean that, anybody involved in this program can opt in for 4 sessions online to meet with peer groups, where mid-level leaders from across Massachusetts can connect in facilitated conversations on your experiences, your strategies, your challenges, your ideas related to equity and change. And those will be facilitated by NAS. And I want to say that, that is really going to be driven by the people who opt into the group. NAS, one of our core design tenets is to design with. And so we will really be listening to the people who opt into that group to decide the direction of the group. That's really participant driven. So that's what's on offer. And we'll go to Sue Ellen next for the who is it for?
Okay, so as we mentioned, we're really targeting mid-level leaders with this initiative. We believe that mid-level leaders are important change agents, and we also recognize that you hold a multiplicity of relationships within your organizations, both in the internal capacities as well as external partners working more on the front lines with community. And we also recognize that mid-level can have a really broad interpretation depending upon your organizational size and structure. And we really want to stress that our aim here is to be as inclusive as possible. And so if you're unsure if you fit this definition, then you probably do. And we really encourage you to submit an application for this. Really, if we're looking at small size organizations, we're really looking at anyone who extends beyond the executive and/or artistic director of that organization. And for larger institutions where there might be a C-suite executive leadership, this program would be open to all of those folks who fall outside of the C-suite. But again, if you have any questions about your particular role and eligibility, we either encourage you to apply or to reach out to me or Sunny, and we can certainly further guide you about that.
Great, thanks, Sue Ellen. What is the peer learning community? We covered that a bit already, but just to say, that'll be open to only people who participate in the coaching as well. It's another layer of support for you to advance your goals and really talk about your experiences, what it's like to try to be advancing those goals as a mid-level leader. I will also say that it's a space where we most likely will offer affinity groups, so opportunities for people to get in, smaller breakout groups according to identity, according to job function, or maybe, location. Those often happen in NAS peer learning communities as well. How much time does it take? Really important to know what you're committing to, what you're getting into. With your work with your coach, the sessions are an hour long. There are 6 sessions that happen over roughly 12 weeks. So that's every other week you would be working with your coach. And I always like to say that, entering into coaching, your work is not just in your session, it's also in applying and working through what you're learning. So I like to think about it actually as an hour a week that you want to devote to this. You'd only be, on Zoom with your coach for an hour every other week, But I always like to talk to clients about maybe, put it on your calendar for every week at that time and spend that off week working on advancing those things that you're working on with your coach. People get the most out of it when they tend to think of it that way. And with the peer support community, should you opt in for that, that's 4 monthly meetings over roughly 4 months. So that's, just a monthly commitment instead of a weekly. As for the timeline, are the interest forms that you have been sent that, ask you about why you would like to pursue coaching, the goals you might want to work on during coaching, what kind of a coach you'd prefer. Those are due July 9th. So we will wait until we receive all the forms to get in touch with you about connecting with a coach. And that July 9th deadline is driving what happens next. We take the rest of July to connect you with your coach, to give you the opportunity to opt into the peer learning community and schedule all of those things. And in August is when the coaching and the peer learning opportunity would begin. So starting in August, roughly till the end of the year. Okay, talk to me about confidentiality and how this might affect how my boss will view my role. So getting into some of these sticky things. Sue Ellen, do you want to start on the part about how your boss might view your role?
Sure. And so I can just say when we were conceiving this initiative, we wanted to make sure that executive directors did not have unfair expectations in regards to staff participating and what that would set them up to do and what outcomes that they should expect from this initiative. So we did start with sending an email directly out to all the CEOs of staff who we invited to participate to make it clear 2 things. One, that this is part of your regular work, so that you shouldn't be scheduling these meetings in your weekend time or off time, that this is something that you should, that your boss should see as your work contributing to your organizational role and your job. And so therefore it shouldn't be taking place outside the work time. And then also that we're to be very clear that we're not positioning you as the DEI or equity champion for your organization. And that real change management to change organizations is really held in the responsibility of leadership. But what we are doing with this initiative is that we really see this as an opportunity for personal growth and to support you as staff members, and that will have ripple effects across your institution, but that you are not responsible for leading the change efforts toward equity in your organization, but we all contribute to that work in our various different roles.
Thanks, Sue Ellen. I also want to say that with NAS Coaches, we adhere to the highest of ethical standards in coaching. And one of those is confidentiality between client and coach. And therefore, anything that you say to your coach in a session, that is between you and your coach. One thing about this program that we do want to lift up is that it's an opportunity for NAS, Barr Foundation, and others in the field to learn more about what kind of support mid-level leaders really need. What other kinds of programs beyond this would help them thrive, would help them be real change makers in the field and feel more supported and less burnout, frankly. I hear that all the time. I experience that myself. So that is one thing that coaches are listening for. And coaches will be getting together to say, in general, across all of these mid-level clients, we are hearing X, Y, and Z about the types of challenges they're facing and the types of support they might need. But none of that information will be attached to any client's name or have any kind of information that could lead to attribution. So everything is confidential. Major themes that are not attributed will be used for advancing the field and learning, specifically in this area of supporting equity and change and supporting mid-level leaders. Okay, great. So with that, we're going to make a shift from what is specific about this program to what is coaching. I know a lot of people may be new to coaching, and so I'm going to invite my colleague Darren Dudley to present on coaching.
Thank you, Sunny. We know that a lot of times people are hesitant to come to coaching because they're not even really sure what coaching is. And so we wanted to take a moment to provide that definition of coaching, also to think about why clients generally come to coaching and what they've been able to achieve as a result of coaching. So when we think about coaching, we think about coaching as a thought-provoking and co-creative process where you and a coach embark on a journey of self-discovery to inspire you to maximize your personal and professional potential. The words that I really want you to take away from this definition is co-creative process, right? So this is something that you and your coach will work on together. It should not be driven by your coach, but really more driven by you, and they're there to help support you. The other word that I really want you to pay attention to is a journey, right? This is a journey. This is not, this is something that you will have to continually work on. And it's going to be a process, right? And so I just want you to pay attention to those two things. It's a co-creative process and it's a journey. You might also be wondering how you can advance to the next slide. You might also be wondering, well, what is the difference between a coach and these other things, right? And so a lot of times people don't really understand what coaching is because they have a hard time distinguishing between a coach, a consultant, a mentor, and a therapist. So I created or came up with this really great 2x2 as a way to help better understand what is coaching and how it is different from these other roles. So it's really interesting because in this diagram, on one continuum, we have ask versus telling. We have asking versus telling. And this means that the person that you're working with is either more focused on asking you questions to generate understanding and awareness, or telling you what they know from their own experience. On the other continuum, you have problem versus solution. And really, this just means, is the individual that you're working with focused more on understanding the problem, or are they more focused on providing a solution? And so as you can see, the coach is more in that upper left diagram where a coach asks questions in order to draw out and leverage the expertise of those that they serve, meaning their clients. So we are of the mind that our clients are the experts. They know what it is that they need to do. Sometimes they just need help uncovering what that is. And so with powerful questionings, we can help pull that information out of them. Coaches are also more focused on getting the client to understand the problem before jumping right into figuring out a way to solve it. On the other hand, a consultant is more about telling. So they very rarely ask a whole lot of questions, right? They're more about just telling others what their problems are and then immediately jumping to the solutions based on their own expertise and their own experiences. And so, it's a little bit different than a coach because they're not, a consultant is more there to tell you almost what to do. And a coach is really there to help guide you to understand what is that you already know. Then we also have therapists. So like a therapist, a coach asks lots of questions, right? Therapists ask a lot of questions. So they're also on that continuum. They just do it for different reasons. A therapist are asking questions because they're more focused on diagnosing what has happened and really, really kind of digging deep into uncovering what kind of the problems are and then trying to offer a solution for those problems. So a coach is really more focused on the present and not so much focused on the past. They're really focused on the here and now and also helping you to be more forward thinking. And lastly, mentors are just there to give advice based on their own experiences. They're not really asking a lot of questions. They're really just kind of telling you what they think you might be able to do because they've experienced them themselves and they just want to give you advice to help you get there. So this is just kind of a nice little diagram for you to understand what are the differences between each of these four roles. If you want to go to the next slide, Kyle. So why do clients come to coaching? So over the past year, we have gathered data from many of our coaching clients. So that is one thing that NAS really strives to do, is gather learning and information. So like Sonia said, that we can learn and help figure out what is it that the field needs, so we can do better at being able to provide the support that they need. So over the last year and a half, we've gathered a lot of information regarding why clients initially come to coaching, and the impact that coaching has had on them. So next, I'm going to just go through a really quick summary of some of the high-level data that has come out of that. So out of all the data that we've gathered, the most frequently mentioned reason why clients come to coaching is to get direction and clarity on where they want to go in the next phase of their career. So clients often talk about feeling kind of lost and a little bit confused and really unsure, and they just want some clarity and direction. Clients also come to coaching because they want a safe space to vent and to just think critically about their work, free of judgment. So coaches it should be a very judgment-free zone. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to challenge you, but they won't judge you. This is a time for you to come and just let out whatever it is on your heart to let out, to be able to freely and safely work through your thoughts. Clients also come to coaching to better understand the challenges that they are facing, and then to kind of think of and work on strategies to work through those challenges. Clients come to coaching to set goals and develop a work plan towards them. And they also want to gain self-awareness. They really want to understand their own strengths and how to leverage them. So often clients come and they're just really not sure of what their real strengths are, even though the information is right there at their fingertips. Sometimes it takes someone else to be able to highlight for them what they're seeing and what their strengths are, and then what to do with them. Clients also come because they want to build their capacity with staff. And so they really want to work on relationship management. And that could be with their staff, their other peers in their department. It could be with their partners, but they really need to work on some relationship management. And they also really want to work on increasing their confidence in their leadership ability. So these are just some of the things or the high level things that most clients come to coaching for. And so as a result of coaching, though, clients have been able to achieve all that they intended to achieve, and often report even achieving so much more. Like there are some positive unintended outcomes as a result of coaching. So for starters, clients report feeling much less overwhelmed, and they have a greater work-life balance. They also have greater confidence in their leadership ability, which is great because it's one of the things that they come to coaching to work on. They also, of course, have a clearer sense of direction and purpose. So that clarity that they're seeking, they report really being able to achieve that. They know exactly what direction they're going in. They also have a better understanding of self and their own values and strengths. And this is where we kind of see not just that they have more self-awareness, but they also report being more aware of their own biases and how to check them. They've also reported that they now know how to extend themselves grace when they don't do things perfectly right away, and that they recognize that they're always in a position of learning. Clients have also been better able to manage their own emotions, which is a really big one and key, and something that most clients don't necessarily come to coaching for, but have recognized that they are better at as a result of coaching. They're really better able to regulate their own emotions, especially as it relates to receiving critical feedback, and also as it relates to when things don't go exactly as they planned. And then lastly, clients have a better understanding of their staff and their organizational needs. And because they have this better understanding, they have talked about being better able to implement strategies that are actually effective. So those are just some of the reasons why clients come to coaching and what they've been able to achieve as a result of. So I'll shoot it back over to Sunny.
Thank you so much, Darren. And Kyle, thank you for the slides. Perfect. I was going to say, I think we can go just to the faces now. Darren, thank you so much for walking us through what is coaching, what are clients working on, what can they achieve. Of course, through this program, we're really focusing on your equity and change goals. And maybe as you were listening to that, you were thinking all of this really is in alignment with if you had an equity and change goal. Having that space to have a safe space to vent is valuable. Being able to check your biases and think from a different perspective, absolutely related. And so really at NAS, we like to say all coaching should be equity coaching, because all coaching should be checking your assumptions, getting you to think from other people's perspectives about a systemic picture, not just what is happening from one perspective or in one situation, but how it connects and has ripple effects throughout your organization and the community. But for this specifically, we are talking about equity and change related goals. We'll get into that a little bit further later. So now I'd like to take the opportunity to hand it over to 3 of our coaches. So you'll get the opportunity to meet 3 of the 20-some coaches that NAS has in our collective. We have asked each of these 3 coaches to talk a little bit about why they coach or their own coaching style, and then focus on one specific aspect of this particular initiative, what they might bring to this initiative. So Jacqueline, I'm actually going to ask if you could speak first. And so Jacqueline, we've asked to talk a little bit about her own connection to coaching, and then also why coaching is effective in advancing equity goals. And coaches, I want to ask all 3 of you, are you okay with me giving a little signal when you hit the 5-minute mark? Do I have your permission to do that? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so with that, I'll hand it over to Jacqueline. Thank you.
Yeah, so again, yeah, everyone, it's wonderful to be here. I think it's important to just to name, like, I grew up on my reservation in northeastern Arizona, having no idea what coaching was. I didn't know, outside of being a volleyball and basketball coach, like that there were such things as personal coaches. And it wasn't till I think had entered college and really understood that this was a possibility, but not knowing what like a life coach meant or personal coach meant, but seeing some of that being modeled in some of the people that I was following, but I never thought that it was from me, like for me, that I could fill that role. And so fast forward to coming into coaching really through a program. I'm a creative community fellow through NAS. So I've been part of the NAS family for, since 2017. And in alignment with the launching of NAS's program, I had entered into an all BIPOC focused coaching collective based in New Mexico. And through my training, really began to see the power of coaching. And really what kind of pushed me into the journey was a fracture that I was experiencing in one of my friendships that I really couldn't process. And it was by raising my hand in one of our coaching trainings and sharing like what my situation and the dynamics were and what I was feeling, that it really led me to this journey of transformation and helped me recontextualize like the relationship that I was having with this Indigenous sister, and helped me to see what I needed to own like in that, and also what I could potentially change. And from that moment, I really began to see the power of coaching as being something that honors a coach partner in their wholeness, whether or not they acknowledge and see their wholeness themselves. I love being a coach because it is coach partner led. That really, like, my job is to be in that listening seat, and I come to the experience in the field of being a coach, and particularly in this formation with the Barr Foundation and NAS, as somebody who has transitioned from being in a museum space to being in a greater community of working around cultural justice and implementing and really helping organizations to catalyze ways of embedding Indigenous ways of knowing into organizations to lead to more equity. I have seen that even in the coaching program and like tenets that we have, that there are inherently indigenous practices that are a part of our ethics and a part of our really ways of being and practicing as coaches that align. I see my own Diné philosophies that are in alignment of thinking about wholeness, about respect and our responsibility to each other as Bala Ashla'i or five-fingered people. And so I think that when thinking about the possibilities for coaching to help individuals see a more equitable, a more just, a community and world that really aligns and helps us to enter journeys toward this like collective liberation, toward the fulfillment of Indigenous sovereignty, that so much of that has to come from a surveying of our own internal landscapes and skyscapes and cosmos, right? And so I think that so much of what coaching can do is help hold and create containers where the coach and coach partners are able to provide some mirroring, to provide reflection, and to help. I think one of the biggest tenets, especially that come into play with coaching, is recognizing our own positions, like in our beloved communities, right? And so much of that centers on accountability. And so sometimes I think we know the ways that we maybe understand some of the gifts, we know what excites us. We also maybe need some more clarity around maybe boundaries, understanding like what our positions, understanding of ways that we can leverage our own power within an organization. And then I think sometimes the springboard for it though is sometimes we're missing accountability. And I think that coaching is really powerful because a coach can really help an individual be accountable to the goals that you want to set. So really checking in and like supporting you, not just your well-being for like how you're processing, but really like, okay, now how are you taking action? And I think so much of the work around equity is how are we taking action? How are we learning together in public with grace, with our hearts in radical kinship? And that's what I'm really excited about. So thank you all. I'm looking forward to your question.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. That's beautiful. Turning it over to Steve. So we've asked Steve to talk a little bit about, his own coaching style or approach, and then also why is coaching effective in supporting mid-level leaders? So Steve, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Sunny. Also, thanks Sue Ellen and Barr for joining National Art Strategies and recognizing the importance of coaching. Sunny, I'll keep my eye out on you for the hook at the end of the 5 minutes and just talk until then. I want to let you know and share that I was a co-founder of a community-based professional theater company where we were looking at justice issues and racial issues, class issues, geography issues, and creating new works of theater to engage civic dialogue. I did that for almost 20 years and then moved to a university where I entered kind of as director level. So taking this transition from a founder and a creator of an organization to kind of entering a mid-level position at a larger institution and university. And after a few years of that, I discovered coaching. And I discovered coaching because I was facing some issues at work and with myself. One was values alignment. So there's my personal values and what I was hoping to achieve with my career and my passions and my sense of justice. And the other was my department's values, working at the Autorino Center for the Arts. And then above that is the university values and who I have to report to and the decisions that I am being asked to go towards that might be in conflict or not exactly what my values were. So I was feeling a values drift, and also thinking, does this mean I need to start looking at a new place, a new, not necessarily a new career, but what is my future if I can't work out my values here? A good friend of mine had become a coach, and as early coaches need to practice hours and have some pro bono hours they need to do, and that's how I discovered coaching. And it really was this co-creative process where a lot of the questions were about asking me, what is my desired future? What does it look like? What is the bridge from here to there? What are the obstacles standing in the way? And it provided me with a tremendous amount of insight and language to myself, acknowledgement, and also what Jacqueline was talking about, accountability. How do I transform and make sure I can transform from one week to the next? And that there was some growth, there was some internal realizations, there is some external. So I love what Barr has written about and what I connect to as part of this program, which is the sense of urgency. When a client meets with a coach, there is a sense of urgency, the urgency of questions. What are we interrogating today? What are we working on together? Also, that personal values. Values are always in the room. And it's really essential that we work from a place of solid values and that we're building a sustainable pathway towards the future. And the coach and what we're trained in is really about listening to your essential values and how we can build together. And that might be something that looks like trialing out conversations. Who are you having difficulty with having conversations with? How do you step into that space? How can you be your best self? How can you bring your best self into those situations? Those are a lot of growth points and edges that I grew through working with my coach. And it has allowed me to work with others, and especially the training that I've received through National Art Strategies and the International Coaching Federation, the accreditation work. It's really making sure that we co-create together, identify those obstacles, and then know the destination that we are going to together. And working with, and I think, that I was done with consultants, really, and I was done with kind of that model of people saying, well, here's how things worked for me, and this is what you can do, and this is a best practice. And that's good up to a certain point, and it's really essential for those learning blocks to happen. But I think especially mid-level leaders get to a point in which you've done a lot of learning, but you intrinsically have that knowledge inside of you. And so the practice to speak it out loud and to visualize putting it into action, I see that the coach creates an individual action plan for each client according to that client, so that they can and really be empowered to start making small changes every week. And those accumulative changes are what's accountable to the coach by the end of the 12 weeks. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. That was a perfect note to end on. It was right as I signaled you. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to hand it over next to Veronique. And we've asked Veronique to talk a little bit about her own coaching, connection to coaching, and then also about coaching for the whole person. So Veronique, handing it over to you.
Okay, and I hope to live up to what Steve and Jacqueline were just able to do by keeping it focused and short. I ran arts organizations all, in very different parts of the country, in very different regions, from the Northeast to New England to the South, for over 30 years. And so I was part of executive leadership for a very long time. And at one point a few years ago, after leaving my last position as an executive director, I was really kind of thinking about what did I want to do? And I knew that it was just time to do something different, to use my skills differently. And as I was kind of going through that, I started consulting, but I also started talking to former staffers and colleagues. And because I had had that step back, I started having a different relationship that was on Darren's model, more of the mentor type of relationship. Um, and in some ways, realizing that there were some themes that I was seeing with burnout. And I love that Barr and NAS have put as part of the goals of this initiative to look at self-care. But what I've pointed out often is people don't know what self-care is. It's almost kind of like back about 10 years ago, people used to talk about work-life balance a lot, and they still do. But what does that really mean? You know, and that gets really muddy. So anyway, I actually went back to school and attended Duke University to become an integrative health coach. So I'm also nationally certified and have passed my boards as a health coach. So when I approach coaching, I approach from the whole person model. So it's about not only reflecting back and dealing with the challenges that my clients might be having in a work situation, but it's also about creating strategies and developing tools against burnout. I often say that I doggedly work with you on putting yourself on that list, because especially when you are a deferential leader, which many mid-level and mid-career directors and managers are, they are within their organizations, they are deferential leaders. You know, people come to them, maybe not even in their own department, to talk about issues. And you take all of that in. So how do you keep yourself on the list and keep yourself from burning out? How do you create those strategies? So I work a lot with clients on, I know Sunny mentioned, you know, that an hour with your coach and then maybe another hour on the off weeks dealing with some of those issues. Well, my clients also work on it, like taking 5 minutes every day to do something that works for them to keep themselves on the list. What tools, what strategies do I need to do a personal check-in? Because you have to be able to have those kind of sustainable tools in order to work effectively, both in your organization and externally. So a lot of my work, when I say it's whole person coaching, it's not just about what's going in the office. It's about how is it affecting you and your life. So I made it in 5 minutes, Sunny.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you to all three of our coaches for offering your perspectives. You know, all of us at NAS joined together in this collective, but all of our coaches have different perspectives, different, you know, specialties, different things that they're passionate about. So I encourage you to go ahead and read about all of the different coaches on our website. When you go to the form, the registration form that's due July 9th, you will see a link to go read about all of our different coaches. So thank you. We're going to go to question and answer now. I'm going to not read anybody's name, and we'll try to move through these questions rather quickly. So the first one is about their position and what's going on in the organization. The staff and board is majority white. We have a staff task force addressing issues of equity and inclusion on our board, donors, audiences, etc. Can you give an example of how coaching may or may not help me? So I'm going to give a short answer, and then if one coach wants to weigh in. So I would say it depends what your individual goals are related to that situation. I haven't heard in your explanation here, what are your particular challenges or goals related in that? Do you want to be part of that effort and you're looking for support on how coaching could support that? You know, how do you join in on advancing that? Are you facing challenges in your organization related to this work that's going on? That's something that coaching could support you in as well. So does one other coach on the call want to weigh in on that particular question?
Yeah, I think that you answered it. I think just to say that I would have like more questions, right? Like, you know, to be able to uncover like what about, you know, the environment that you're working in aligns or maybe doesn't align I would have questions about how, you're feeling, like what are, again, kind of to uncover a little bit more of like the goals and what you feel is important and how are you wanting to shift things or transform like from your position and place like in the work.
Absolutely. Thank you. The next question is, what happens if you're paired with a coach with whom you are not connecting with in a productive way? Will you reassign coaches? That is a great question. Darren, can I turn it over to you for that one? Maybe, I guess we haven't talked about the whole matching process as well.
Yeah, so I can talk about that a little bit. And so, yeah, so generally what we like to do is you may, complete the request form and say, I really like this particular coach. And generally what we do after that is try to schedule a chemistry call or chemistry conversation with that coach for you to just have a really quick conversation, getting to know one another so you can kind of understand what that coach's approach is to, their coaching practice. Does that align with what feels good to you? And then you can decide whether or not you want to move forward with that person, or maybe you might decide, I actually would like a chemistry call that just didn't feel right to me. But let's say you did. You said the chemistry call actually went well. It felt really right. You start and embarking on this coaching journey with this coach, and it just for some reason is not sitting well with you. You can definitely email NAS and say, hey, this has been my experience. I'm just looking for something a little bit different. Would you mind, placing me with someone else? And we can certainly do that. We do not want to put you in a situation where you are working with someone that just doesn't feel good and you're not getting 100% what you want to get out of it. And so we're always here to help kind of like renegotiate that for you.
Great, thanks, Darren. We have another question. Will you accept applications for more than one person at a single organization? Absolutely. Please, as many people per organization, go ahead and complete the form. We have capacity amongst, resources and our coaches' availability at this point to support 50 individuals. If we are oversubscribed, if we have more than that, we may have to, make some decisions about allotting how many per organization. But for now, we do want to know what is the overall interest in this. Sue Ellen, anything you wanted to add about that?
I think that's right, Sunny. And we see power in the fact that multiple people can find support through this and even join the peer group. And so we definitely didn't want folks to feel like they're competing against their colleagues in applying. And we are planning to evaluate this effort. And so our hope is that this isn't the one shot, to get into the coaching program, and that this is something that Barr and NAS can work together to grow even beyond mid-level leaders, to potentially other levels of the organization. But so what we need to know is that what is the demand for this? And so if you're even thinking about it, it would be great just to submit an application so that we can accommodate and adjust accordingly.
Okay, thank you. On to our next question, and this one also might be for Darren, actually. How can equity support data initiatives within an arts organization and the way leadership looks at this data, specifically database and analytics?
No one's 100% sure I understand the question, but wait, say it again for me, Sunny.
I'm going to put it in the chat because there's no
Okay,
name associated with it, so we won't. Just so you can see it. And actually, Darren, if you want a minute to think about that, we can go to the next question. That might be, yeah, because really, I think, absolutely. How can coaching help me reach someone high in my organization who is far removed socially and experientially from the majority of their staff? As a very empathetic mid-level employee, I have been privy to a lot of the issues from staff that are not being heard by management. How can the coaching help me help them be heard? It's a really interesting situation. Any of our, Veronique, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think Steve also will probably want to join me in this one. But this is what I meant by differential managers. And how do you keep that empathy, but also sustain yourself? and sustain, how you work through these problems, how you use that empathy within your organization to really address the values of what's going on, but also keeping very clear, what are your value set? What's your value set? And how do you protect that and honor that as you're starting to work and maybe behind the scenes start to create conversations? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and Veronique, I think I'll just build on that a little bit. In terms of the coaching session and the confidentiality of a coaching session, it's really I found a powerful place to be able to say things out loud for the first time to somebody who is non-partial and is there to really empathize with you as a client, and also imagine what somebody else might be going through in those situations. And with that space, it creates a very holistic point of view in which perspective is gained. And I've seen my clients really leave with new tools. I can give you an example of a client who they were structuring a very new all organization wide. It was a fairly large organization, saying every 2 weeks on Thursday afternoons, there would be 1 hour of conversation. And this person decided that through talking with me as a coach that they would volunteer to be a facilitator of that. So, and do a lot of pre-thinking and working with me to say, how do we create a new dynamic in the space to allow for people to hear each other that haven't heard each other in the past? And so it was a growth, it wasn't an overnight change like a consultant coming in and saying, this is what you have to do, but it was learning the particulars of the culture, where shifts, where opportunities are, and then trialing, testing those out and keeping that conversation going so that over the course of time working with a coach, we can really ascertain if there's growth and if effort is really moving towards outcomes in your work and understanding with each other at the organization.
Great, thank you. Darren, do you want to go back to the data question? And I'm going to type an answer to another question that's come in through the chat. Go ahead.
Sure. So how can equity help support data initiatives within the arts organizations and the way leadership looks at this data? Actually, the way that I read this question is it's cyclical, right? Because you want equity to help support your data initiatives in terms of how you even look at your data and what this data is telling you. So when you better understand equity and what your equity goals are, you can start to look at your data with a different lens, right? And so we're always talking about maybe disaggregating our data. What data are we collecting? How are we looking at it in terms of age and race and geography and all of these different kind of like equity dimensions? How are we even looking at our data? But I'm also, want to think of it on the flip side. It's just like when we look at our data, how is that supporting our equity initiatives? What is this data saying about what we're doing as far as equity within our organization? So you want to look at it from both sides. So I definitely feel like equity can help support understanding your data, determining what data to collect, how to analyze your data, what is it that you are looking for? And if you really have a better understanding of what equity is, I think you can have a better understanding about what your data and what your analytics should look like.
Thanks so much, Darren. I know we are now 2 minutes over time, so we're going to go ahead and conclude. For those who are looking for the application, they are on this web page with Barr Foundation. We will also email everybody who attended and registered today to let you know. Oh, thank you for sharing the link, Kyle, to let you know how to apply. So that's by July 9th. Okay. So with that, we are going to wrap up the webinar. Should you have any questions, you can contact Sue Ellen directly. Her information is on that website I posted to the chat, although, excuse me, I need to post it to everybody. You're welcome to get in touch with any specific questions you have. We also have a frequently asked questions document on that website. We want to thank everybody for their time today. And thank you to our speakers for joining us and sharing about your coaching experience. Thank you so much to Kyle for helping us organize behind the scenes. Thank you so much to Sue Ellen and to Barr Foundation for your support and partnership and getting this off the ground.
Thank you. I mean, this has been really wonderful and informative, and such great questions. And I want folks to know that for those of you who have a platform for your initiative that you're involved in at Barr, I will be posting this recording, and then we'll also send it out to everyone who registered. So in case people had to leave early or you want to revisit this material, we'll make sure that you get this recording. So thanks for those who asked about that.
Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.